they can't pay you what you ladies think you deserve. They can pay you what you're worth, but what you think you're owed, WNBA doesn't have enough money to cover that expense. Mark Cuban very politely, shout out to you, Mark, very politely says these teams in this league, they don't make enough moolah. The league doesn't make enough moolah to pay you guys what you want. Sorry, it's the reality of the situation.
The WNBA is in a tough spot financially. The words "the league is broke" have sent shockwaves through ongoing discussions about player salaries. And this warning didn't come from a casual commentator online or someone making guesses on social media. It came from Mark Cuban, a billionaire owner with decades of experience in professional sports. He knows exactly how money is made, spent, and managed in big leagues, and he isn't afraid to speak the truth. When Cuban stepped into the WNBA conversation, he made players, owners, and fans uncomfortable because he didn't sugarcoat anything. He didn't play politics or try to avoid hard questions. He simply looked at the numbers, and the numbers are harsh. According to him, the league's finances are tight. There isn't much room for major salary increases, and the current structure is difficult to sustain long-term without serious changes. This kind of blunt honesty is rare in professional sports discussions, where people often avoid upsetting players or fans. Cuban's comments have sparked a lot of debate. Players are worried about their future earnings, while owners must figure out how to keep the league afloat. Fans are also starting to realize that the WNBA, like many women's sports leagues, faces financial challenges that go beyond the court. It's not just about talent or popularity, it's about economics, ticket sales, sponsorships, and how the league manages its money. The conversation now is no longer just about salaries, it's about sustainability. Cuban's words forced everyone to face uncomfortable truths. If the WNBA wants to grow and continue attracting top talent, serious financial planning and smart investment are necessary. Ignoring the problem won't make it disappear. The league, its players, and its supporters now have to confront reality, rethink priorities, and find solutions before the financial situation gets worse.
Responding to the latest news that WNBA players are asking for an average of 27.5% of league revenue and team-provided housing for all players in recent CBA discussions. The WNBA's response, unrealistic and would cause hundreds of millions of damage. Let's get into it. The crazy part is that no matter what the WNBA does with salaries, every star college player will take a pay cut to play in the...
Here's what set off Mark Cuban's blunt response. WNBA players recently made a bold request during their collective bargaining agreement negotiations. They asked for 27.5% of the league's total revenue, and on top of that, they want every team to provide housing for all players. From the league's perspective, this request is far from easy to fulfill. Officials warned that agreeing to these terms could cost hundreds of millions of dollars and put serious financial pressure on the league. At first glance, 27.5% might sound like a reasonable demand. After all, NBA players receive about 50% of their league's revenue, so WNBA players are essentially asking for roughly half of what male players get. On paper, it seems fair. The logic feels simple, and many fans immediately see the comparison as a matter of equality. But the reality is far more complicated than just percentages. The main issue nobody seems to discuss openly is that the WNBA doesn't generate revenue anywhere near the level of the NBA. Ticket sales, sponsorship deals, broadcasting rights, and merchandising are all significantly smaller. Even if the players asked for a smaller percentage, it would still put enormous financial stress on the league. Meeting both the salary demands and the housing request would require a complete overhaul of the league's budget and long-term financial planning. Cuban's point is simple but uncomfortable. The league can't just treat WNBA finances the same way as the NBA's, because the scale is completely different. The numbers are real, and ignoring them won't make the challenges disappear. This is why his comments caused unease among players, team owners, and fans alike. Everyone has to face the truth. Achieving pay equity isn't just about fairness. It also requires understanding the league's current financial limits and finding sustainable ways to grow.
I saw Rose talk about this, shout out Black and White Sports too. This is happening in the NFL too. Memory serves me correctly. Cam Ward, last year, prior to his final season in Miami, so 2 years ago at this point, declared for the draft. Miami said, hey, we got a big fat bag for you here, more than you would make being a rookie in 2025. Come to Miami, we'll pay you, and then you can go to the pros. Cam Ward said, bet, I don't want to take a pay cut, and I don't want to sit either. I'll come back to college, I'll make a massive amount of money, and I'll play for my...
It's hard to believe, but some college athletes are earning more money than WNBA rookies. Think about that for a moment. The top women's college basketball players can make anywhere between $500,000 and $1.2 million per year thanks to name, image, and likeness, nil deals. Meanwhile, a rookie in the WNBA typically earns around $76,000 a year. In other words, choosing to go pro can actually mean taking a pay cut. This isn't just a theory, it has happened in other sports too. Take Cam Ward, a football player, as an example. When he faced the decision of going professional, the University of Miami offered him more money to stay in college than he would have earned as an NFL rookie. In the end, he stayed in school, making the financially smarter choice. Right now, a similar situation is happening with quarterback Carson Beck. Top college athletes, even some of the biggest stars, have to weigh whether turning professional is truly worth it financially. The reality is shocking. WNBA rookies are entering a professional league with lower pay than what they could earn in college if they sign lucrative endorsement deals. For many players, the decision to go pro isn't just about chasing a dream or playing at the highest level. It's about financial survival. Even stars, not just role players, face this tough choice. This comparison highlights a major problem in women's professional basketball. The league's salaries aren't keeping up with the opportunities available to college athletes. If this continues, the WNBA risks losing top talent to college programs or nil deals because the financial incentives aren't competitive. Players, fans, and league officials all need to recognize this gap and work toward a solution that makes going pro a rewarding step rather than a pay cut.
Player on a power conference women's basketball team, $500,000 to $1.2 million, and you are always a free agent with the portal. You get your room and board paid for, and you can get a good education if you work at it. It's all subsidized by donors and shared school revenues, which makes it more similar to Europe, where companies subsidize teams than to the WNBA. In the NBA, a team can't go to a sponsor and negotiate a direct payment deal for a player. In college, they effectively can with NIL money. When I have written checks to IU, I knew which players we're trying to get with the money. Quote, parentheses, although I never tied the money to specific...
Mark Cuban has proposed a solution that many people find both clever and practical. He believes the WNBA should adopt a system similar to the college NIL, name, image, and likeness model. Instead of relying solely on league salaries, each team could work directly with local sponsors to arrange payment deals for individual players. These deals would be fully legal and carefully regulated, with a cap per player based on their experience. This way, sponsorship money could boost player income without causing financial strain on the team or the league. Cuban points to how it works in college sports as an example. When he donates to Indiana University, he knows which players are benefiting from the funds, even if the money isn't officially assigned to them. Donors contribute to the program, and the program distributes support to the athletes. Everyone involved understands the process, and it creates a system that helps top performers earn more, while keeping the overall program financially stable. He suggests the WNBA could do something very similar. Teams would identify sponsors willing to invest in players directly, giving athletes extra income on top of their base salaries. Caps based on experience would ensure fairness and prevent the richest players from taking too much of the available sponsorship money. By adopting this approach, the league could supplement salaries in a structured way, allowing rookies and veterans alike to earn more without overextending the team's budget. Cuban's idea addresses one of the league's biggest problems: pay limitations. Many players leave college expecting to earn a fair professional salary, but the current WNBA pay scale falls far below what top college athletes can earn through endorsements. By creating a legal, regulated sponsorship system, the league could give players more financial security while still protecting its own economic health. This approach has the potential to make professional women's basketball more competitive and appealing for athletes, sponsors, and fans alike.
WNBA teams don't have the margin dollars from tickets sponsors, and shared revenues like TV to pay bigger salaries using their own cash flow. Own cash flow. Now, these players would say, hey, why don't you just dip into some of your Brooklyn Nets cash? Why don't you just dip into some of your Golden State Warriors cash? Why don't you just dip into some of your Portland Trail Blazers?
And this is where Mark Cuban really lays it out. The truth about WNBA finances is harsh. The teams simply don't have enough extra money from ticket sales, sponsorships, or shared television revenue to pay higher salaries out of their own cash flow. Let that sink in. This isn't about owners being stingy, and it isn't about the NBA refusing to support women's basketball. The problem goes much deeper. It's part of the league's basic business model. The revenue just isn't there. Many players want team owners to cover the gap with money from other sources. They imagine using profits from the Brooklyn Nets, Golden State Warriors, or Los Angeles Lakers to supplement salaries in the WNBA. But Cuban is clear. That's not how it works. Money from one business doesn't automatically belong to another. The funds generated by NBA teams belong to those organizations, and owners aren't obligated to pour their personal or NBA profits into WNBA salaries. Cuban's point is simple but uncomfortable. Raising pay within the league has to come from the revenue the WNBA itself generates, not outside sources. Without enough ticket sales, sponsorship deals, or broadcast income, there is no realistic way to drastically increase salaries. This is why Cuban has suggested looking at alternative methods, like the college-style NIL system, where sponsorships can supplement pay without destabilizing the league's finances. It's a reality check that many people don't want to hear. The conversation about WNBA pay isn't about fairness or commitment. It's about economics. Players, fans, and the league need to understand that increasing salaries requires more revenue, creative solutions, and sustainable financial planning. Cuban isn't trying to be harsh. He's being realistic. The money isn't magically available, and any long-term solution has to respect the league's financial limits while still finding ways to fairly reward the athletes who make it all possible.
Legal. Create a cap per player based on years of experience. Yes, some teams will suck at it. That's where the WNBA comes in to help. They will suck at it as well for some period, but like collegiate NIL, the sponsorship packages will supplement player salaries without undermining the economics of the teams and league itself. The next question will be competitive balance issues. The big markets can do this better. They have a great addressable market for sponsors. The WNBA could require that some percentage of the NIL money deals go into a pool for a version.
Not every WNBA team will have the same ability to secure sponsorship deals. Teams in bigger markets naturally have access to more companies, more money, and more corporate partnerships. This creates a clear advantage for those teams in boosting player earnings through NIL deals. To address this imbalance, Mark Cuban suggests creating a revenue-sharing system. He proposes that a portion of all NIL money be pooled together and then distributed to smaller market teams. This would ensure that players in less wealthy or less visible cities still have a chance to benefit financially. The idea isn't entirely new. It's similar to how jersey sponsorships work in professional sports. The real value of a jersey ad doesn't just come from a team's local games or regional TV broadcasts. Much of the income comes from national television coverage, playoff games, and merchandise sales. To keep things fair, the revenue from these deals gets shared across the league so smaller market teams also benefit. Cuban is suggesting the same principle be applied to player NIL deals. Under this system, bigger market teams could still negotiate individual sponsorships for their players, but a portion of the money would be set aside to help teams in smaller cities. This would prevent a situation where only players in major markets earn significant extra income while others are left behind. It's a way to level the playing field while still encouraging corporate investment in players. Cuban's idea is practical and forward-thinking. By combining individual NIL opportunities with a shared revenue pool, the WNBA could create a more sustainable financial model. Players in all markets could enjoy higher earnings without putting any single team at risk financially. While it wouldn't solve every issue, it would be a meaningful step toward making professional women's basketball both fairer and more financially viable for everyone involved.
Obviously, I'm just spitballing this, but if they came on Shark Tank, that's what I would suggest What do you think? Well, you know what, Mr. Cuban? For just spitballing this, I'm not mad at it. Yeah, some places will have an advantage, and you can't get around the advantage to a certain degree. But I'm for it. I'm for it. What's the difference between that, right? Let's say, right? Some places will have a...
Now let's address the big issue that everyone knows but few talk about. Some markets naturally have huge advantages over others. Players often accept lower salaries in cities like New York because the potential for endorsements and sponsorships is massive. The chance to earn extra money through local and national deals can easily outweigh the base salary they receive from their team. A perfect example is Stewie Cunningham. She left Phoenix to play in Indiana specifically to join forces with Caitlin Clark. That move transformed her career. Clark's profile skyrocketed, and now she is one of the most recognizable names in women's basketball. Being in the right place, whether it's a major market or playing alongside a star, can create an unfair advantage that has nothing to do with a player's actual salary. Opportunities like these are already shaping player earnings and career paths, whether teams or fans realize it or not. Cuban's proposal doesn't eliminate these advantages. Instead, it acknowledges them and makes the system more transparent. By creating a structured NIL revenue-sharing model, the league would openly recognize that some players naturally benefit from being in bigger markets or with star teammates. Rather than hiding these disparities, Cuban's plan distributes the financial benefits more fairly, while still rewarding players in high-profile locations. In essence, his idea turns an unspoken reality into a formal system. Players in smaller markets or less prominent teams would no longer be at a complete disadvantage when it comes to supplementing their income. At the same time, players in bigger markets would still enjoy the benefits they earn through endorsements, but part of that value would help support the league as a whole. It's a practical way to balance opportunity, transparency, and fairness, while acknowledging the realities of professional women's basketball.
If true that the league isn't profitable and able to stand on its own, does any of it matter? Just let it fold. It's subpar basketball. Once everyone is done pretending to care about it, it'll fade away naturally. Yikes. Yikes. The big problem is that no one watches women's basketball because the level of competition is so low. Men are so much better at the game. This looks like a woman saying this as well, so I don't want to see anything in the comments. Men are so much better at the game that you're essentially watching middle school level hoops. The game is boring for everyone that doesn't see it as a social cause. Damn! Damn.
The reactions to Mark Cuban's comments show just how divided opinions are about the WNBA and its financial struggles. Some people are extremely blunt about their thoughts. One comment read, "If the league isn't profitable and can't stand on its own, does any of it matter? Just let it fold. It's subpar basketball. Once everyone stops pretending to care, it will fade away naturally." Harsh as it sounds, that viewpoint reflects a sentiment shared by some fans who focus strictly on entertainment and business realities, rather than social causes. Another perspective came from a woman who explained the problem differently. She wrote, "The main issue is that no one watches women's basketball because the level of competition isn't strong enough. Men are so much faster, stronger, and more skilled that the games feel like middle school basketball in comparison. For anyone who doesn't care about it as a social cause, it's just boring." These reactions aren't trolling or meant to be mean. They highlight why the revenue gap exists. Fewer viewers lead to smaller TV deals, fewer sponsorships, and lower ticket sales. Without significant fan engagement, teams struggle to grow financially, which directly affects player salaries and league sustainability. Cuban's post forced a conversation that goes beyond paychecks. It's about why the league generates the revenue it does, and why the current financial model makes it difficult to increase salaries without creative solutions. People's comments make it clear that many fans see professional women's basketball through two lenses, either as a social cause worth supporting or purely as entertainment. The financial gap stems from this split. By acknowledging these perceptions, Cuban is not being dismissive, he's highlighting the reality. Revenue comes from audience interest, and audience interest is tied to the level of competition and market exposure. Understanding this is key to figuring out how to grow the WNBA, attract fans, and eventually close the gap between player pay and revenue potential.
With the WNBA, that they all think they are or should be as big of a draw as the one player in the league who is a bona fide superstar. So they think they are all the reason for the Caitlin Clark effect. Players think the massive bump in attendance and ratings is to see players who don't actually fill the seats or make people watch games. WNBA commissioner thinks it's due to a new mobile app. I'm not making this up. And because of other rookies not named Caitlin Clark who have large social media followings, but again, do not put asses in seats or draw ratings. David Webb, you're cooking here. Other stakeholders want the league and its success to develop according to what they want. A product showcasing Black and LGBTQ, you forgot the plus, women playing on half court, elbows in the paint, 80s NBA physical brand of basketball, instead of embracing the full court, fast-paced, exciting brand of ball that their lone household name has introduced to the league. That actually does bring a bigger audience and fill the seats.
The WNBA is facing a fascinating and complicated moment in its history. The league is growing, ratings are up, attendance is increasing. But behind the scenes, there's a major debate about salaries, player value, and how money is made. Mark Cuban, billionaire NBA owner, recently jumped into the conversation and didn't hold back. His comments are shaking up players, owners, and fans because he points to a harsh reality. The league's finances are limited, and current salary structures might not be sustainable. But here's where it gets really interesting. Someone wrote a detailed breakdown of the problem that cuts to the core. The ownership structure of the WNBA is, in many ways, broken. Players assume that the spike in attendance and viewership comes from their collective efforts. The WNBA commissioner believes it's due to a new mobile app. Other stakeholders want the league to evolve according to social or cultural priorities. A product showcasing Black and LGBTQ+ women playing a slower, half-court, physical style reminiscent of the 1980s NBA. Meanwhile, the reality is that the league's biggest draw comes from one superstar, Caitlin Clark. The Caitlin Clark effect is measurable. Attendance is up 35% this season, and games featuring her average over 1 million viewers. Games without her revert to standard WNBA numbers, around 300,000 viewers. Most stakeholders, however, don't want to admit that one player is driving the majority of growth. They want to believe it's the league's overall marketing, the app, or a broader appreciation for women's basketball. While there may be some truth in that, the data is clear. Clark brings viewers, and without her, the numbers drop significantly. This presents a major challenge for salary negotiations. The Players' Union is asking for 27.5% of league revenue. Mid-tier players benefit from Clark's popularity. They see higher attendance, better jersey sales, and more social media attention. But they aren't the reason people are tuning in. This discrepancy becomes risky when setting salaries. What happens if Clark gets injured or retires? Will casual fans stick around for the rest of the league? If salaries are based on inflated revenue numbers, the league could quickly find itself in trouble. Cuban sees this because he's seen it before. The NBA faced similar issues in the early 2000s. Huge TV deals were signed, salaries rose, and then the 2008 economic crash exposed the system's vulnerability. Cuban's solution is elegant. Use a system similar to college NIL, name, image, and likeness deals. Instead of tying salaries directly to league revenue, teams would create separate sponsorship deals for players. These deals would be legal, regulated, and capped by experience. If league revenue drops, teams wouldn't be stuck paying unsustainable salaries. Instead, the sponsorship market adjusts naturally based on each player's popularity and marketability. This also solves a glaring equity problem. Right now, Caitlin Clark earns roughly the same as players who bring in a fraction of her audience. In any other entertainment industry, that wouldn't make sense. Imagine Taylor Swift earning the same as her opening act. Absurd. Nil deals allow players to earn based on their value. Clark could make $5 million through sponsorships, while others might earn $50,000. Market-based pay isn't unfair. It reflects contribution and appeal. Some argue this creates inequality, but Cuban emphasizes the difference between merit-based and arbitrary inequality. Pay should reflect the value you bring to the league. The WNBA has long tried to balance being a social justice platform with being a professional sports league. Cuban's model forces a choice. Are you a business, or are you activism? If you're a business, Compensation must reflect market value. Another challenge is the league's history of reliance on NBA subsidies. The WNBA has never been profitable on its own. Owners fund it as a loss leader, hoping it eventually becomes self-sustaining. But 27 years later, it still isn't. Players understandably want salaries closer to NBA standards, but the scale is completely different. The NBA generates roughly $10 billion annually. The WNBA generates about $200 million. Proportionally, if NBA players take 50% of revenue, and WNBA players take 27.5%, the women are getting a better deal relative to the size of the pie. The problem isn't percentages, it's growing the pie. This is where nil deals shine. Sponsorship money comes from outside the league, creating a new pie rather than redistributing the same funds. Companies will pay for access to top players. State Farm, for example, might pay Clark $2 million because she moves the needle for their brand. That money exists. It just needs a legal, transparent framework. The Las Vegas Aces tried a similar approach, paying players through other businesses, but the league blocked it, citing salary cap rules. Cuban argues the WNBA should make these payments legal, set caps, require revenue sharing for smaller markets, and let the market determine individual value. Market-driven nil deals also address the college-to-pro pipeline problem. Top college players are currently earning more than WNBA rookies. Why would someone like Paige Buehrse leave a college nil deal paying $1 million to make $76,000 as a rookie? The answer is they wouldn't. Nil deals in the WNBA could flip the equation, combining a base salary with supplemental earnings to create a competitive incentive to go pro. Cuban also addresses market imbalances. Some teams naturally have advantages. Big cities, star players, and sponsorship access give them leverage. To prevent a total imbalance, Cuban suggests revenue sharing. A portion of all nil money could be pooled and distributed to smaller market teams. This mirrors how jersey sponsorship revenue works in professional sports and ensures fairness while still rewarding individual success. The system also acknowledges the uncomfortable reality that much of the WNBA's growth is tied to individual stars. Clark isn't just increasing attendance. She's expanding the league's audience. Redistribution of revenue without acknowledging individual contributions risks keeping everyone financially limited. Cuban's model gives players a path to actual wealth, separate from league revenue, while allowing the league to remain financially stable. Fan reactions illustrate the divide in public perception. Some argue the WNBA isn't compelling enough on its own, pointing to lower skill or slower pace compared to men's basketball. Others see it as a social cause worth supporting. These perspectives help explain why revenue is lower and why traditional revenue-based salary structures struggle. Ultimately, Cuban's proposal forces a choice: operate as a business or operate as activism. If the WNBA wants to grow, attract talent, and reward players fairly, it must embrace market-based compensation through nil deals. Sponsors are ready to invest. The infrastructure exists. The league just needs to create the legal and transparent system to let that money flow. The debate is just beginning. Players want more money. The league says it can't afford it. Cuban shows a path forward. Supplement salaries with external sponsorships, recognize individual value, and grow the league sustainably. The question remains: will the WNBA take the step to embrace this model, or continue fighting for revenue that might never exist? One thing is clear: the future of women's professional basketball depends on solving this tension between fairness, market reality, and sustainable growth.